Warning before this video starts, content shown here may not be suitable for all ages. This game is meant for mature audiences and I will be covering it with minimal censorship. Viewer be warned. Five Nights at Freddy's is a huge horror series, popular with kids, teens, adults, you know, everyone. And the man behind these games, Scott Cawthon, he's known to be a little bit of a troll. As early as FNaF 3, Scott was releasing fake games just to tease FNaF fans about his games that were on the way. But each time Scott released one of these teaser games, these troll games, they grew more and more complex. Eventually, we saw the release of Freddy in Space 2, a sequel to that one minigame in FNaF World. It was a side-scrolling shooter that took heavy inspiration from the Mega Man series while injecting it with plenty of FNaF goodness, like Lolbit. And just today, as of this writing, we saw yet another troll game. Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, the game, is the long title for Freddy in Space 3, Chica in Space. In this game, you, as Chica, must clear level after level, gaining assistance from other members of the FNaF roster to ultimately defeat the evil Scott Cawthon. And this game, oh my god, this game. Words alone can hardly describe what this game is even like. Is it stupid? Yes. Is it funny? Yes. Is it actually really fun? Big yes from me at least. I think if there's any one piece of this game I can really sell you on how ridiculous it actually is, it's gotta be Island. This level is island themed and degeneracy themed. Its official gang, Love Taste Toy Chica, is in an actual FNaF game now. So let me show you this game, what makes it good, what makes it bad, and what makes it bizarre. Because deep down underneath this, I think there's a very apparent message from Scott to his fanbase. So let's start with your characters and what they can do. Playable in this game is Chica, the default. She's the only character to not have any added bonuses, but hey, I think it's great she gets her time in the spotlight. Also playable is Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, and Mangle. Of these, I ended up playing Mangle probably the most because Mangle is able to pull money more frequently from these question mark balls, which can then be used at Lolbit's store. What can you buy there? A lot of stuff. Your three main item types are guns, helmets, and pets. Guns are self-explanatory. Buying a different gun means whatever you fire out of it is going to be different. Sometimes it's bubbles, sometimes it's flames, sometimes it's watermelons. Those ones are actually my favorite because when a watermelon is fired, it also shoots seeds at the top and bottom rapidly, which can damage enemies above and below you. My second favorite is the snowball gun, as snow kind of acts like a poison effect. By far the least useful is the hot cheese gun. Hot cheese is from FNaF World, where if it fell on the battlefield, it would damage enemies who step into it. It's the same principle here, but it's a pain to use, so I usually don't bother. Helmets are a bit more random, as each helmet has a unique effect associated with it. Many of them will alter your gun in some way. For example, the watermelon hat. This hat will allow you to fire your gun, but additionally when you do so, you'll also fire a watermelon. It's great. Then there's the rainbow helmet. This one is so fun, it just randomly calls upon these rainbows that act like almost instant kill barriers. I don't know how to control them, I don't know if I can control them, and I don't want to because this is hilarious. But my favorite has to be the Foxy mask. Wearing this will make it so that anytime you hit an enemy, it will summon a rain of pirate hooks directly at them. This rain doesn't stop until the enemy has stopped moving. The final main item is pets, and these are a lot more hit or miss. Pets float around you and often act as a secondary automatic weapon. For example, the cupcake will continually fire fireballs from his candle, and the nightmare cupcake will latch onto an enemy you've hit and start biting. But my favorite has to be the Frostbear plush. The Frostbear plush doesn't do much on its own, but whenever you fire your gun, it will apply the freezing effect, creating slow damage ticks while you fire. It overall just increases your DPS and instantly kills anything with only one hit point. I have a flamethrower that freezes you, fear me. By now, watching the footage I've shown, you've probably noticed that this game is very strange in terms of environments and enemies. And you'd be very right. This game has callbacks to the books, callbacks to old memes, callbacks on callbacks on callbacks. So here's a couple that you might have missed. German Funtime Freddy is an enemy that appears in the meme caverns. This is a callback to Kalingoff's audition for the character, where in one take he gave the character a German accent.
Hello, little children. Glad to see you back again. Come closer. I'll sing a song for you.
That would have been terrifying.
That is an alternate reality.
Sea Bonnie. This is a giant version of the titular antagonist of sea bonnies, which are shrimp-like creatures genetically altered to vaguely resemble bunnies, sold by Fazbear Entertainment. Buff Helpy. This one is a community joke from Dawko, who had been sent a Photoshop of Helpy's head on a buff man. It's been a recurring joke on his channel since.
Foul demon! Get it out of here! Go on! Get out!
Given Dako and Scott seem to work closely on certain projects, this doesn't surprise me all that much. Mangle's gender. During the quiz show level, you were asked what Mangle's gender is. The correct answer is yes, because of a Steam post where Scott answered the question, is Mangle a boy or a girl, by simply saying yes. I think overall this game comes off as a big community joke. Every reference or Easter egg has its place in the series' history, and in the fandom that created it. For example, the final boss of the merch cemetery is a disfigured Foxy plushie piloting a gross mug that's shaped like Freddy's head, throwing down these gnarly ankle-biter looking Freddy plushies. All 3 of these items are real-world merch items, although some are admittedly bootleg. But I think what ultimately wraps this up as the FNaF fans joke game has got to be the boss battles. Not all of them are great, but a few here are specifically here to poke fun at certain theories or characterizations. For example, this fight against Gregory piloting the big Glamrock Freddy mech. He throws discs at you, which is in reference to the theory that Gregory is Patient 46, a character who we only ever hear about from playing collectible discs in Security Breach. Whether or not this is Scott confirming that Gregory is 46, who's to say? This fight is one of my favorites, but there's a ton of them. Roxy gets a fight, Party Hat gets a fight, this thing gets a fight. Hell, Buff Helpy gets a fight, where he just flexes and throws beer mugs at you. But I figure I probably should talk about that one particular level. In part because it's really funny, but also in part because, wow, I feel kinda bad Scott is aware of how evil some of his fans are. Overall, this island is pretty tame in terms of actual content. It's just what is shown here references some very specific themes and other content, like Bonnie from Five Nights in Anime, one of the strangest, oldest fan games out there. But the funniest one to me has got to be this specific Freddy, who is drawn in reference to that one meme. Other than that, there's also Toy Chica, and guys, I mean, we already knew that Scott knew, but when he starts referencing specific fan models, that's when you gotta start asking questions. I don't want to talk about that part of the game for too long because there's only so much beating around the bush I can do, but yeah, that entire section of the game had me practically jaw-drop while playing, thinking like, he knows. I will however mention that this game is rated M for mature, with the warning even mentioning nudity. There's not even any nudity in the game, it's that stern as a warning. And if you don't take my word for it, then take King Carter's word for it. Oh, and the final boss of this level is Foxy coming for your booty, which happens regardless of your character's gender. So congrats Foxy, second LGBT FNaF character this year. I know the haters will say,
that be treasure, you know.
The first level is the easiest in the game and feels mostly like a tutorial level. However, you can play the levels in any order you want. It's kawaii themed, making everything adorable. And the cupcakes have blood on the bottom from their previous victims. Then there's the fungal zone, which is primarily based on Scott's earlier works, even including Soul Dozer, who said in his last appearance that it would be his last appearance. Guess he was wrong. Oops. But of course the most memorable piece of this level to me is that one of the bosses is straight up Chipper. Not L-Chip, mind you, Chipper, the actual star of Chipper & Sons Lumber Company, the very last game Scott had made before the release of the first Five Nights at Freddy's. Seeing Chipper in FNaF stuff is relatively common now since the story about that first game's development is so well known, but I can't get over him appearing in this game seemingly out of nowhere. But hey, most bosses here are out of nowhere. Next up is Animatronica and the Space Highway. Animatronica is named after the fictional land the characters lived in FNaF World, although now it seems like it's sunken into the sea. This is by far my least favorite level of the game, as the physics make things much slower, and the level is filled with these little starfish enemies. These starfishes don't deal a lot of damage, but they often appear in swarms, and since you can't freely point your gun, your only option at times is to take unnecessary damage just to continue. Otherwise, it's a fun level, and even includes Felix the Shark, who may be one of my least favorite FNaF characters ever. But I mean, how fitting is it to have him appear here? Less fitting than the boss, I'll say, which is the aforementioned C. Bonnie. The Space Highway is another favorite of mine, although it is very short. The main obstacle this time around is going to be the speed of the enemies, as they often appear driving extremely fast cars or rockets. The drivers are also pretty funny, including William Afton and Helpy. Once you get to the end of this level, you have to fight Roxanne Wolf, who is probably the worst fight and artwork in this game, unfortunately. I say it's the worst artwork purely because it's just a PNG that slides around like a PowerPoint presentation. Kind of lame. But it's only part one of technically a two-part boss fight. After you defeat Roxanne, you'll be brought to Glamrock Bonnie, and to Glamrock Bonnie's, I guess. This fight is bullshit. Your objective is to of course whittle down Bonnie's massive health bar, but while this happens, these orbs will appear and either fire straight up or target you. There's no healing in this fight, and many of these attacks are either unavoidable or avoidable but implausible. One bad dodge can cost you this fight, and then you have to go back through both levels and the Roxanne fight again. I had to do this 5 times in total before I finally beat Bonnie. Easily my least favorite part of this game. But then there's the Merch Cemetery and Meme Cavern, two of my favorite parts of this game. The Merch Cemetery is a somewhat spooky volcano-themed area where terrible FNaF merch burns for eternity, including a Freddy pillow pet, the black light plushies, and the weird Chica mask thing that you can see in the movie. No complaints about this level at all. In fact, it even has one of my favorite stage gimmicks, that being the breakable walls. Some walls in this level can be broken by your gun, enabling you to discover different areas. The ultimate application of this comes when you need to get to the exit and the floor around you is destructible. It's a pretty satisfying end to the level. The boss here is the aforementioned bootleg Foxy plush piloting a Freddy mug, tossing bootleg Freddy plushies down at you. Little rats. But then the strangest thing happens. Once you beat this boss, it transitions into a level themed after Chica's Magic Rainbow from FNaF World. It's a rage game level with plenty of traps and tricks to reset your progress, and it ends with a boss fight against this little fucker. I hate this boss. Not in a bad way, but in a very good way. He's kind of the perfect out-of-nowhere boss battle, one you never see coming. After that is the Meme Cavern, which is a shorter level and also pretty easy enemy-wise. The main problem you'll have this time around is platforming, where a false move can mean death by spikes. It's overall a decent level, but my computer tried to prompt me with sticky keys while I was standing on some spikes, and so I had to watch myself slowly die while I tried to cancel that pop-up. Really unfortunate. Anyway, the boss of this area is Buff Helpy, who will be firing mugs of beer at you from his biceps. It's a fun nod to a long-standing member of the community, just a fun fight in general, and over pretty quickly. If the worst I can say about this fight is that it was too short, then I think it was a good fight overall. Up next is Island and Monty's Quiz Show. I've already covered Island, so I won't pry too long into that. Instead, let's move right on to the quiz show. This quiz show is a fun one, but like the last level, a little too short for my liking. The way it works is you're presented a question, and then you must fall down one of two holes. These holes will either have spikes at the bottom, or a prize, and you may continue. There's only a handful of questions, but they're all pretty fun. My favorite has to be the one about adult theory being a popular theory on Reddit in 2016. If you don't know what adult theory is, look it up, I'm not telling you. Anyway, the boss here is Monty, who just stands there chucking the quiz cards at you the whole time. This fight is weirdly fun just because of how chaotic it is, but God forbid you don't have watermelons or the witch hat. Anyway, this fight then leads into a fight against Gregory and Glamrock Freddy. Gregory, now piloting Freddy like he's an Evangelion mech, will hurl discs at you as you try to climb up to him. This fight is fun, but it does have a little snag to it, that being one of his attacks is straight up undodgeable at times. Still, a really fun time, and I got to tell Isaac the Baddest that I killed Gregory. And that's every main stage of the game. But then, the final level is unlocked. In this level, you have to gear up and get ready to face Scott himself in Phaser Blast. The way this fight works is Scott will randomly appear in the windows or above one of these walls in the Phaser Blast arena, where he will fire at you. You have to damage him when he's visible. This isn't a hard fight, but it lasts a while and is a really fun climax to the game. And your reward? When you beat him, Scott gives you a code that ends up being part of a YouTube link to some new footage from the FNaF movie. I can't show you this footage because Universal would tear me in half, but it's a really cool find. Overall, Chica in Space is an absurd, bizarre, and unbelievable FNaF game. And I love it. It's goofy in the best of ways and does not take itself seriously in any capacity. Is it the best game ever? Obviously not. This game, as a game, is probably closer to a 6 or a 7 out of 10. But as a gift for the fans, it's unmatched. I love this game to death and back. I really cannot get over this thing being real. And with that, I'm gonna have to say goodbye for now. Until next time, I'm DMuted. Be sure to subscribe, and peace.